Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation on land resources and agriculture. This is the first slide, so I'd like to start by welcoming you all and giving you a quick overview of what we'll be exploring. We'll look into how land resources are managed, the importance of agriculture, and some of the key challenges and opportunities in this field. So, let's dive in and explore these fascinating topics together. Let's start by exploring pulses, which are an essential part of Indian agriculture. Pulses are the main source of protein for many people and are cultivated in various regions across the country. Moving on, we'll look at common property resources. These are resources like forests and grazing lands that are shared among communities, and managing them sustainably is crucial for rural livelihoods. Next, we'll examine the major crops in India. These include rice, wheat, sugarcane, and cotton, which form the backbone of our agricultural economy. Understanding these crops helps us see the diversity and scale of Indian farming. We'll then discuss categories of land use, such as agricultural, forest, and urban land. This helps us understand how land is allocated and utilized across the country. Following that, we'll consider different types of farming, including subsistence and commercial farming, which vary based on scale and purpose. We'll also touch upon the problems faced by Indian agriculture, like low productivity, dependency on monsoons, and lack of modern technology. Recognizing these issues is key to finding solutions. Next, we'll look at land use changes in India, how urbanization, industrialization, and other factors are transforming our landscape. This leads us to cropping seasons in India, which vary regionally and are dictated by climate and rainfall patterns. Finally, we'll discuss land use and resources, emphasizing the importance of sustainable management for future generations. Throughout this presentation, we'll see how all these aspects are interconnected and vital for understanding Indian agriculture as a whole. Land use records are maintained by the Land Revenue Department, which keeps track of how the land is being used across different areas. The Survey of India plays a crucial role as well. They are responsible for measuring the geographical area of various administrative units in the country. Now, when we talk about land use, we're referring to the different ways in which land is utilized. Some land is occupied by rivers, which are vital for our ecosystems. Other parts may be covered with trees, providing us with forests and resources. Then, there are areas where roads and buildings have been constructed, serving as the foundation for our towns and cities. It's important to understand that different types of land are suited for different uses. For example, some land is ideal for agriculture, while others are better for urban development. Humans use land as a resource not just for production, like farming or industry, but also for residence and recreation. So, land serves multiple purposes, and its management is essential for sustainable development. Understanding land use helps us see how we interact with our environment and plan for future growth responsibly within the overall theme of resource management. As we look at this slide, the first point to highlight is that the number of people that the agricultural sector has to feed is increasing day by day. This is a critical challenge because, despite technological advances, the demand for food continues to grow with population increases. Next, in developing countries, we often see that the share of the population dependent on agriculture declines much more slowly than the sector's contribution to GDP. What this means is that even as agriculture's economic importance shrinks, a large portion of the population still relies on farming for their livelihood. This leads us to an important insight. Although the contribution of agriculture to the economy decreases over time, the pressure on land for agricultural activities doesn't necessarily decline. In fact, the pressure remains because the need to produce food and raw materials persists. Now, let's understand why this continued pressure exists. The reasons are rooted in how our economies change over time. Typically, the secondary and tertiary sectors, like manufacturing and services, grow faster than the primary sector, which includes agriculture. This pattern is especially common in developing countries, such as India. As the economy shifts, land that was once primarily used for farming gradually gets converted for non-agricultural purposes, like urban development, industry, or infrastructure. This process results in a gradual transfer of land use from agriculture to other sectors. Moving on, the size of the economy itself grows over time, driven by factors like population increase, rising income levels, technological advances, and more. As the economy expands, so does the demand for land, especially for housing, industry, and other infrastructure. This increased economic activity and population growth put additional pressure on land, often leading to the use of marginal lands, areas that might not have been suitable for farming before, but are now brought into use due to the demand. Finally, it's important to recognize that there are three main types of changes affecting land use as economies develop. These include shifts in land allocation, technological impacts, and changing economic priorities. Specifically focusing on India, these land use changes are quite pronounced and serve as a prime example of how economic development influences agricultural land over time. In summary, even as the economy diversifies and grows, the demand for land remains high, and managing this balance is a key challenge for sustainable development. Let's take a closer look at the current fallow trend. As you can see, it fluctuates quite a bit over the years. These fluctuations are largely influenced by the variability of rainfall and the cropping cycles, which can vary from year to year. So, it's not just a straightforward increase or decrease, but rather a pattern driven by environmental and agricultural factors. Moving on, when we talk about the increase in fallow land, it's important to note that much of this apparent rise can be attributed to an increase in the demarcated area under forest. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that the actual forest cover in the country has grown significantly. It's more about how land is categorized or demarcated in official records. Now, let's consider the share of land under forest. This share can also be affected by how land is classified, especially with changing land use policies and administrative decisions. Next, we see that part of the increase in land use is due to the expansion of non-agricultural uses. This includes areas being converted for industrial, infrastructural, or urban development purposes. These shifts reflect broader changes in the structure of the Indian economy. Speaking of which, the overall economic transition from agriculture to industrial and service sectors plays a key role here. As the economy evolves, more land is allocated for non-agricultural purposes, which influences land use patterns significantly. Finally, it's important to recognize that these categories of land use, whether agricultural, forest, or non-agricultural, are interconnected and reflect broader socioeconomic trends. Understanding these dynamics helps us see how land use is continuously adapting to changing needs and circumstances. Most of the decline in land resources has actually happened due to the increases in area under non-agricultural use. This includes things like the expansion of building activities on agricultural land, which reduces the land available for farming. When we look at net area sown, we see that as land pressure from both agricultural and non-agricultural sectors grew, wastelands and cultivable wastelands have decreased over time. This decline is largely driven by illegal encroachment, especially when cultivation expands onto common pasture lands. Such encroachment reduces the area of cultivable wasteland, impacting our overall land resources. Similarly, areas under pastures and tree crops have also seen a decline, again, mainly due to increased land pressure from various sectors. And when we consider barren and wasteland categories, we notice a similar trend. These areas have also registered a decline over time. Overall, these patterns highlight how intensive land use and encroachment are leading to a reduction in wastelands and cultivable lands, which is a significant concern for sustainable land management and our overall development goals. Owned by the state meant for the use of the community. CPRs, or common property resources, are really vital for rural communities. They provide fodder for livestock, which is crucial for many households, especially those dependent on animal husbandry. Additionally, CPRs supply fuel for cooking and heating needs, along with other minor forest products like fruits, nuts, fibers, and medicinal plants, which all play a role in daily life and local economies. When we talk about cropping intensity, or CI, it's calculated by dividing the gross cropped area, GCA, by the net sown area, NSA, and then multiplying by 100 to get a percentage. This gives us an idea of how intensively land is being used for cultivation. In rural areas, especially for landless and marginal farmers, CPRs are incredibly important because many of these individuals have limited access to land. They often rely heavily on these resources for their livelihood, particularly through livestock rearing. And it's also important to recognize the role of women here. Most of the collection of fodder and fuel from CPRs is carried out by women, making these resources essential for their daily lives and well-being. So, CPRs are not just about natural resources, they're deeply intertwined with social and economic stability in rural communities. All right, let's look at the cropping seasons in India and the major crops cultivated during each period. First, we have the Kharif season, which runs from June to September. During this time, the major crops grown in the northern states include rice, cotton, bajra, maize, jawar, and tur. These crops are typically dependent on the monsoon rains, which arrive around this season. Moving to the southern states during the same period, you'll find rice, maize, ragi, jawar, and groundnut as the primary crops. These crops are well suited to the climatic conditions of the south, and their cultivation peaks during this monsoon season. Next, let's talk about the Rabi season, from October to March. In the northern states, wheat, gram, rapeseeds, mustard, and barley are the main crops grown during this period. These crops are sown after the monsoon, taking advantage of the post-monsoon cooler weather. In the southern states during Rabi, rice, maize, ragi, groundnut, and jawar continue to be cultivated. This shows some overlap with the Kharif crops, but the focus shifts to crops that can be grown in the cooler, less humid months. Finally, we have the Zaid season, which occurs from April to June. This is a short season mainly for vegetables, fruits, and fodder in the northern states. In the south, rice, vegetables, and fodder are cultivated during this time, often taking advantage of the residual moisture from the monsoon. Understanding these cropping seasons helps us see how farmers adapt their planting schedules based on climate and region, ensuring they make the most of available resources and weather patterns. It's a great example of how agriculture in India is closely tied to seasonal cycles. Let's talk about wetland farming first. This type of farming occurs in regions where the rainfall is more than enough to meet the soil moisture needs of the crops during the rainy season. However, these areas can sometimes face challenges like flooding and soil erosion, which can affect crop growth. Because of the abundant water, farmers often grow water-intensive crops such as rice, jute, and sugarcane. Additionally, these regions commonly practice aquaculture in freshwater bodies, which means they raise fish and other aquatic animals alongside crop cultivation. This integrated approach makes the most of the water-rich environment and supports diverse agricultural activities. When it comes to productive irrigation, the goal is to provide enough soil moisture during the cropping season to achieve high productivity. Essentially, we want to ensure that crops have adequate water to grow optimally. On the other hand, protective irrigation serves a different purpose. It's about safeguarding the crops from the adverse effects that can come from a lack of soil moisture. Think of it as a safety net, keeping the plants healthy when natural rainfall isn't enough. Now, irrigated farming can be approached in different ways, primarily depending on the main source of moisture for the crops. Whether it's rainfall, groundwater, or surface water, understanding this main source helps us determine the best irrigation strategy. By tailoring our approach to the main moisture source, we can optimize water use and improve overall crop productivity. This concept ties into the broader theme of managing water efficiently to support sustainable agriculture. Cereals form a crucial part of Indian agriculture, occupying about 54% of the total cropped area in the country. That's more than half of all the land devoted to farming, highlighting just how important cereals are for our food security and livelihoods. When we look at the global picture, India produces roughly 11% of the world's cereals. That's a significant share, considering the size of our country and the diversity of our agriculture. In fact, India ranks third in cereal production worldwide, coming after China and the United States. This ranking underscores the vital role cereals play in our economy and in feeding our population. Understanding these figures helps us appreciate the scale and importance of cereal cultivation in India's overall agricultural landscape. Rice cultivation in the irrigated areas of Punjab and Haryana was introduced in the 1970s, following the Green Revolution. This period marked a significant shift in agricultural practices, enabling these regions to become major rice producers. Today, the leading rice-producing states in India include West Bengal, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. Collectively, these states contribute substantially to the country's rice output. In fact, India contributes about 22% of the world's rice production, making it the second largest producer after China. Nearly a quarter of the total cropped area in India is dedicated to rice cultivation, highlighting its importance in our agriculture sector. Rice is a staple food for the majority of our population, and it's grown successfully across diverse climatic zones, from the humid regions of eastern India to the dry but irrigated areas of Punjab, Haryana, western Uttar Pradesh, and northern Rajasthan. In the southern states and West Bengal, farmers often grow 2 or 3 rice crops within a single agricultural year, demonstrating the crop's versatility and significance in our food security. Let's take a closer look at wheat cultivation in India. Leading wheat-producing states include Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. Among these, Punjab and Haryana stand out because they have very high yield levels, over 4,000 kilograms per hectare. In contrast, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Bihar tend to have moderate yields, which still contribute significantly to the overall production. Now, about the land area dedicated to wheat. Around 85% of the total wheat growing area is concentrated in the northern and central parts of the country. This includes the Indo-Gangetic Plain, the Malwa Plateau, and even the Himalayan foothills up to about 2,700 meters altitude. Overall, wheat accounts for roughly 14% of the total cropped area in India. Wheat holds an important place in Indian agriculture. It's the second most important cereal crop after rice. In fact, India produces about 12% of the world's total wheat. It's primarily a crop of temperate zones and is cultivated during the winter, which is known locally as the Rabi season. Understanding these regional and climatic factors helps us appreciate how India's wheat production is strategically positioned and why it's so vital to our food security and economy. The core cereals, as a group, account for about 16.5% of the total cropped area in the country, which shows their significance in our agricultural landscape. Among these, jowar stands out as the main food crop in semi-arid regions, particularly in central and southern India. It's fascinating to see how certain crops are so well suited to specific climatic conditions. For example, Maharashtra alone contributes to more than half of the country's jowar production, highlighting its importance in that state's agriculture. Other key states involved in jowar cultivation include Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh. This distribution underscores the regional adaptability of jowar and its role in ensuring food security in those semi-arid zones. Connecting this to our overall theme, it's clear that understanding the distribution and importance of crops, like jowar, helps us appreciate the diversity and resilience of Indian agriculture. Leading producers of bajra include states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Haryana. These regions are key because they have the right climatic and soil conditions for bajra cultivation. Bajra is typically sown in hot and dry climatic conditions, especially in the northwestern and western parts of the country. This is because bajra is a hardy crop that can withstand frequent dry spells and droughts, making it ideal for these areas. Its resilience is a significant advantage, especially with climate variability. Overall, Badra's adaptability and the regional focus of its production highlight its importance as a staple crop in these drought-prone regions. Leading producers of maize are Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh. These states play a crucial role in the overall production landscape. Maize, as many of you know, is quite a versatile crop. It serves both as food and fodder, making it essential for diverse agricultural needs. Interestingly, maize is grown under semi-arid climatic conditions and on soils that are often considered inferior, which demonstrates its adaptability. Despite its importance, maize occupies only about 3.6% of the total cropped area in the country. This might seem small, but its strategic value in food security and livestock feed makes it a significant crop in our agricultural economy. Understanding these key points helps us appreciate the crop's adaptability and the importance of optimizing its cultivation in various agroclimatic zones. Soybean and sunflower are also important oilseeds cultivated in India. Soybean, in particular, is mainly grown in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, which together account for about 90% of the country's total soybean production. This highlights how concentrated soybean cultivation is in these regions. On the other hand, sunflower cultivation is primarily found in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and the neighboring areas of Maharashtra. Interestingly, in northern parts of India, sunflower is considered a minor crop, but when irrigation is available, its yields can be quite high. These patterns reflect how different regions specialize in certain oilseeds based on climate, soil, and water availability, which ties into the overall theme of regional agricultural diversity and resource use. Pulses occupy about 11% of the total cropped area in our country. When we talk about pulses, Gram and Tur are the main varieties cultivated here in India. These pulses are incredibly important, especially in our vegetarian cuisine, because they are rich sources of protein, which is essential for our diet. India is actually one of the leading producers of pulses globally, contributing to about 1/5 of the world's total pulse production. If you look at where pulses are mainly cultivated, you'll find that the dry lands of the Deccan and Central Plateaus, as well as the northwestern parts of the country, are the primary areas for pulse cultivation. This distribution makes sense considering the climate and soil conditions in these regions, which are suitable for pulse crops. Overall, pulses play a vital role not just in our agriculture, but also in meeting the nutritional needs of our population, especially in vegetarian diets. Their cultivation and production are closely linked to the geographic and climatic conditions across India, making them a significant part of our agricultural landscape. Let's now look at some of the key challenges facing Indian agriculture today. First, the inputs required for modern farming are quite costly. Many marginal farmers, who often don't have enough resources, end up taking credit from institutions or even money lenders. This often leads them into a cycle of debt, making their situation even more precarious. Next, more than 60% of land holdings are smaller than 1 hectare. This small size results in fragmented land, which makes farming less economical and less productive. Such land fragmentation limits the scale of operations and impacts overall efficiency. Despite land reforms being a priority after independence, their implementation was not very effective. This has led to an unequal distribution of cultivable land, which in turn hampers agricultural development and growth. Moving on to productivity, the crop yields in India are quite low when compared internationally. For example, the per hectare output for crops like rice and wheat is significantly lower than in countries like the USA, Russia, or Japan. Improving productivity is essential for food security and economic growth. Another critical issue is irrigation. Currently, only about 33% of cultivated land in India has access to irrigation facilities. The rest depends heavily on rainfall, which is highly unpredictable. Poor monsoon performance further worsens water supply and affects crop yields. In summary, these challenges, financial constraints, land fragmentation, inadequate land reforms, low productivity, and dependence on erratic monsoons, are interconnected. Addressing these issues is vital for sustainable agricultural development and ensuring the well-being of our farmers.